what we're going to do is, here on this side, we have the on-premise side, all right? So just to do a quick recap. And then here, we have the application VM, and then here, we have the database VM, all right? And then here inside of this database VM, we have the database, okay? So on this side, what the DBA needs to do, as I shared with you on the project plan, needs to go there and export that data. But because we don't have a on-premises database, we don't have a data center to do it, I'm going to assume that this step is already done, right? This is not a big deal for a DBA. It's just a regular, export of data, all right? So this step, we are going to assume that it is already done. And then the data that we're going to use is going to be, I want you to assume that it came from this database sitting on the on-premise environment. Now, on the multi-cloud side, what you're going to do is multi-cloud, just to be clear. So here on Azure, we are going to deploy our application. Here's Azure. And then this application now is sitting in a Docker container. And then here on OCI, we are going to deploy, or actually import, the database on OCI, but it is empty. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this dump in here and import to this database, okay? And then at the same time, what we're going to do is we're going to pick the Docker image, which is actually here in Docker Hub, right? So let's assume that this one is Docker Hub. If you remember, we put that Docker image in Docker Hub. And we are going to do what we are going to do. We are going to go there on Azure, and we are going to deploy the application using that Docker Hub image, right? The image that we created in the previous mission, all right? So that's the summary that we're going to do right now, and then we're going to move forward. As we move, I'm gonna, add a few more information to the whiteboard, okay? So let's go and now do the hands-on steps. Let me just, make sure that I have the notes available in here so that we can move forward. All right, so just give me 1 second. Just opening here my Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Console. Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Console. Cool. Now also open the Azure console, all right, because we're going to use Azure as well. All right, excellent. So as you can see, we have our notes in here with whatever we need to do. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create the Azure Beloved storage account, all right? So let me put on the whiteboard in here just to make sure that you have the full picture. So in addition to the Azure App Service, we're going to also have the Azure Beloved storage, right? I don't have a lot of space in here, but I'm gonna put it right here. So this is going to be Azure Beloved. So here inside of the Azure Beloved, you're going to have the PDF files, okay? So you're going to provision this guy now, the Azure Beloved, okay? And then you're going to go from there, right? So coming back to my screen, create a Azure Storage Beloved. All right, so for creating that, let's go to the Azure console right now. I'm right here on Azure console. So if that's your first time working with Azure, this is the dashboard. So basically here on the navigation menu, you can see this all services option. If you go to storage, right, just click in storage, you're going to see this storage accounts option. Just click in there. And then here, probably you don't have any account created. What you're going to do is you're going to come in here and create a new storage account. Just go there and click on the plus sign. And here, once you see this screen, you just need to give a storage account name. Just give a name that is unique for you. So let's put TCB, in my case, TCB storage account 1, right? This is going to be my storage account. Just put a name that makes sense to you because you're going to need that, in the upcoming steps, right? So just click in advanced, and then here, you're not going to make a change in any of these options other than this one, right? You are not going to allow Beloved public access, and I'm going to show you why, right? So just click on this option, just uncheck that option. You don't want to allow Beloved public access. And the reason for that is, if you remember, we are going to store the passport files inside of this storage account. So we don't want to have public access, meaning people from the internet with access to this storage account, right? Because we want to protect that and make sure that only the people that actually have access to the application can access the passport that we are going to connect with the application, and only those people would be able to access these passport files, because inside of the application you're going to see that the code is actually authenticating with Azure. That's why we're going to create a key. I'm going to show you that as well. So no one would have public access to those containers, right? So that's all you need to change on this one. Just move forward and then click in networking. And then here in network connectivity, right? In this point in here, we're going to allow public endpoint on in all networks. But one thing that I wanted to show you is, if you don't want to have a storage available to the internet, for example, meaning that people can access the endpoint, or if your application is not a internet-facing application, you don't need to expose that to the internet, right? Which is the public meaning in here. So we're going to leave all the options as a default. We're not going to change any data protection option either. We're not going to add any tags, and then just going to review. And then here you can review, right, your details. And here on the storage account name, I want you to copy your storage account name and go to your notepad and do like I'm doing here right now. Just add a quick note, and then under your notes, just add the storage account name. Just replace with your storage account name in here, so that you can use in the next steps, right? Just copy that like I'm doing, and then just click in create. And as you can see, the storage account is going to be provisioned for us. The deployment process is in progress. Usually it is pretty quick, right? Because it's going to create an empty storage account first. And then just to recap, if you don't remember, a storage account and this service allows us to store files in Azure. And we are creating it because we want to migrate the PDF files to Azure. And because of that, we need a storage account, all right? Just click and go to resource, and then your storage account has been created. Cool, excellent. Let's go back to the notes now. Now, as you can see here in the notes, in the step-by-step, we're going to create a new container now, right? So coming back in here to the storage account, just click in container. And then now the container is just a way that you can use to organize your files inside of a storage account. Think the container of like a folder, right? Container is like a folder, and can have like a folder for your passport files. And let's say that if our application would have any other files like image files or video files, we could have a container for the video files. So that's the purpose of container, right? We're going to create one for passport. So just say passport in here, just put a passport name. Okay, and then as you can see, the public access level is going to be actually private. There is no public access because we disabled that at the storage account level. So it will not allow us to create any public container, right? You could create public container if you would need to, for example, have a container that has data that is available to the whole internet, right? So many applications have images that needs to be stored somewhere to render a few websites or application, or even, for example, when you're there in a members area of any training, those videos that you watch are usually coming from a container like this, right? And then you can just imagine a container like a folder, as I just mentioned. Here in advanced, we are not going to change anything on the configuration, right? And then just click and create. Let me just check if I put passport or passport. Yeah, just passport. Okay, create. And it's gonna create a container for us, and then just make a note of that. If you're using my notes, I already put the container names as a passport. Try to not change it, because then you can reuse the files that I'm going to share with you, right, at the end of this mission. Now, coming back to the console, what we need to do is we need to scroll down and come to Security plus Network and click on Access Key. Now, please pay attention to this. We're going to generate an access key new access key, because remember, our Python application needs to have a way to authenticate with Azure, with our Azure storage account to store our passport files in a private way, right? And in order for the application to be able to do it, we need to give a key so that the application can go there and connect to the Azure through the SDK, right? And then finally be able to store the files inside of the storage account, right? And at the same time, it can also use the same key to read the files and to be able to actually download the PDF files, for example, when needed, right? When they are available in the application, okay? So because of that, we are going to copy two pieces of information in here. The first thing that you need to do is just click in Show Keys. And then once you click in Show Keys, I want you to copy two pieces of information. The first one is the key. Just click here and copy to clipboard. Come back to your notes and then just put inside of the account key variable, all right? Just put in here like I'm doing right now. Okay, so this is my key. So just make sure that you copy it correctly. Then the other thing is the connection string. So the connection string is going to come in here. I'm gonna basically replace that with whatever I just copied. Just make sure that you are copying correctly with no issues or not wrong, characters in here. Otherwise, it's not gonna work. Okay, so I'm just copying again just to make sure that there is no issue with my values. All right, that should be good. So now, as you can see, we have four pieces of information that are going to be very important for the application. One is the connection string that's going to point to the account in Azure that has our container, which is this one in here that we just created. Yours will have a different name, of course, and then you can just go there and change it. And the account name that we just created, the container name that's going to hold the passport PDF files, and the account key so that the application can authenticate with your storage account in Azure. All right, so once you have that, what you're going to do is you're going to go there and download the Docker Compose file. And this Docker Compose file is going to look like this. All right, this Docker Compose file basically will help us to make the configuration process of our application running on Azure App Service easier. All right. The only reason that I'm using it right now because I need to pass the environment variables with the data so that the application can, understand those variables that needs to, actually be important to the application, like the DB password, DB user, DB connect string, and all the Azure variables that we just discussed. All of that is going to be passed to the application container through the environment variables so that the application can understand which are the values that needs to be used to authenticate to Azure and also to authenticate to the autonomous database. All right. So what you need to do on this file, once you download that, you just need to go there and follow the instructions. You need to go there and add this file and change the image path ID in here. So your ID most likely will be different than mine, right? So your ID will be a different one, all right? So that's basically what you're going to change, okay? And then the other thing that you're going to change is the Azure information, right? Azure information, okay? So basically the Azure information, you're going to copy from your notes coming from the top, right? So basically what we're going to do is we're going to copy the values, and then now please pay attention. Don't copy the codes, okay? Just copy the values because you don't need codes inside of this file. Just copy whatever is in between. I'm gonna remove this code so that you don't get confused. You don't need this codes really, so just remove that so that you understand very well. And I wanted to ask my team to please update the PDF and remove those codes because I don't want to cause any confusion. Just go there and update the PDF, okay, with without the codes, all right? And then that's going to be a better experience for you. Just copy that. Just copy that and come in here on Docker Compose, and you're going to basically replace whatever came on your Docker Compose file. Just replace that and put the data in there. I'm just replacing the connection string now. And now I'm going to replace the storage account name, replacing that. And also the container name is going to be the same. It's going to be passport, so I'm not going to change it. And then finally, we're going to replace the storage account key. Okay, just replacing it inside of my compose file. All right, cool. Just doing a quick review, just make sure that it is correct. So I think it is looking good. Okay, cool. Passport, account name, and then here you're going to change your Docker Hub IG, right? So it looks like we are good. So basically, this file is going to be used right now when we deploy the Azure App Service instance. Okay, so coming back to our notes, once we do those steps, right, add this file locally on your laptop, now we're going to move forward and provision the application on Azure App Service, okay? And for doing that, let's go back to the Azure console, and let's go back to the home screen, and then here on services, what you can do, you can come in services and, just come in here and look for the app service, or you can come in here on the search bar and type Azure App Service, and then it's gonna come up as well. Just click in App Services, and then as you can see, I already have one testing one that I was actually testing. I'm just going to remove that because basically I will not use it anymore. So what is the name of this? TCB testing. Okay, yes. Okay, cool. Just remove that. And then what we are going to do is we're going to provision a new fresh service, and then we're going to basically use this service is a fully managed service in Azure that is going to hold the application for us, right? So basically, this is going to go there on Docker Hub and get the image that we pushed to Docker Hub, and it's going to use that image to deploy our application inside of Azure App Service, right? So just come in here and click in Create, and then it's going to ask you for a few information here. In resource group, you can create a new one. Just say aircrew, right? In my case, I already have one created. That's why it is saying that. So I'm just going to come in here and pick the aircrew. In your case, you can create a new one. All right. And then here in the name, you're going to give the, basically the name that is going to compose the URL of your application. All right. So because of that, this name should be unique globally. So the way that I recommend you to do is just do TCB aircrew and your initials of your name and the number 1, because by doing that, you are able to reduce the chances of getting a name that is already used, right, by someone else, okay? Once you do that, just here in the publish option, just click in Docker container, and you're going to keep Linux selected. Region, we can use the central US, but usually when you're working in production, you're going to pick a region, of course, that's closer to your users, right? And then here on the Linux plan and the SKU, you're going to use the free one. And then Azure has actually a always free service. It allows you to have a few app services without paying anything. The way that we're going to do now is we are going to use a free size, right? And this size is free forever, right? And then you can use that for testing, or that's something that we can do, right, for testing purposes, because here we are doing the training, so that's not gonna be a huge size, like not a lot of CPUs or memory, but in production you can actually come in here and create a new one and pick a size bigger with more memory, more CPU, right? Of course, but in our case, given that it is just a demonstration, we are not going to do it, right, with a lot of memories or anything like that. So just click in Docker to advance, and then here in Docker, you're going to basically on this option here, you're going to choose to Docker Compose. Once you change to Docker Compose, here in image stores, you're going to change to Docker Hub. Remember, we uploaded our application image to Docker Hub, and then here in access type, we are going to keep the public, right? And make sure that once you push your application to Docker Hub, you need to make sure that your application is actually public, right? That your repository is actually public. How can you check that? Just go to hub.docker.com, and then you're going to go here on your repository, just click in there and come in settings, and then here on the visibility settings, it should say that it is public, right? So in my case in here, it is already public, right? Because you can see that I can make it private, so it basically means that it is already public, right? So that's all you need to check in Docker Hub, just to make sure that this process in here will be able to go there and get your image from your repository. All right. If you were working in production, you could also do it in a private way by giving the authentication information. Right. You could give your username and password. But in our case, we're just going to go with public. But if you want to try the private one, you can also try that, right? But if you want to make your life easier, just go for public for now, and then you're going to see, you're going to get the same experience, okay? So awesome. Once you do that, you're going to select the Docker Compose file that we just added in here, right? So just making sure that everything looks good. So this is the image, the DB information, everything is in there. Excellent. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go there and pick that configuration file. So I'm just going to come in here, switch back to my camera, please, production, just to go there on the locations that I can switch to my other screen here. Okay, just give me 1 second that I can get that file, and I'm show you as well. Okay, cool, hands-on. Okay, excellent. Mission 4. Okay, all right, cool. Switch back to my camera, and now what I'm doing, I'm just going there on Docker Compose, as you can see, right? Just going there and getting this file that I just added. And then, as you can see, it's gonna already load the file for us, right? So it's gonna basically load whatever is inside of that file is gonna load here for us. Now, one quick thing just to make sure that you're not going to have issues. Please notice that here on the environment variables, we don't have any quotes between the values, all right? If you put any quotes in any of these values, you're going to have issues. So don't do that, all right? Okay, cool. Once you do that, just click in Review and Create. And then as you can see, it's gonna show you how the application is going to be provisioned. Just click in Create. And then it's gonna start the deployment process for us, right? So right now, what Azure is doing is it's creating a new instance of Azure App Service for us. It's going there on Docker Hub, getting the image, the Docker image that we pushed, and then it's using that image to provision the service for us. So if you go to resource now, once your deploy is completed, right, you're going to see that now you have the TCP Aircrew app provision, and then it's going to give you the URLs that you can access your application, right? And one thing in here that you need to keep in mind, otherwise you might get confused once you're doing it, even though it is saying that it is running right now, but also when you click on this URL, you're going to see that it will not be available, just as of now. It is going to take between, 2 to 5 minutes to be fully provisioned, because in the background, the Docker image is still coming up, so it is going to take a few minutes until you can see the application up and running, right? So don't be desperate if you don't see it immediately. It's normal. It's going to take some time. So while it is provisioning, finishing everything, I'm going to show you a few options, things that you can do, right? So right here on the dashboard, you can see, the application activity. You can see a few graphs, from the requests, so that you can see if your application is being used, or even the response time, to help you to identify if there is any bottleneck, any performance issue on your application. And then here, if you scroll down, you have many other options, and the important option I wanted to show you is the log stream, right? Here on the log stream, in case you have any issues, you should consider use the log stream to help you to understand what's going on with your application. If you click in Reconnect, it's going to basically go there and, once the application starts producing logs, the logs will show up in here for you so that you can see if there is any error, any issue. We don't know, right? Maybe we have any issue right now and the application is not going to come up, and we need to look and see in the logs and understand if there is some issue or not, right? So keep in mind, as a cloud engineer, you're going to be really well paid to solve problems, right? So you need to understand where you can get the information to help you to solve problems, because that's something that's gonna, help you on your daily basis to solve problems very quickly And when you solve problems, if you're a good problem solver, you can get higher visibility on your career with your management, with your customers. Just keep in mind, I cannot mention the times that I got higher visibility because I could develop over the time a good ability or good skill sets to solve problems quickly. So that's gonna bring you a lot of visibility. But you don't need to be afraid of problems. You need to just understand, have a good technical foundation, and understand how you can go after the solution for your problems so that you can feel more comfortable while you see some issue. All right. So that's something that I wanted to share with you. And then coming back now to our application. So let's see here if got already provision. So let's just see. It should take a few minutes, right? So it takes time. You don't need to be anxious. It's gonna take some time, okay? It is not ready yet, but let's have a look on other option here and see if I can show you something else. So let's have a look on, this one I already showed you. Let's have a look on alerts now. And here on alerts, what happens is, let's say that you are there in a production environment, for example, right? And you want to be alerted if something happens, if your application is actually taking time to respond. You want to notify the operations team to take actions. And then Azure actually have, like the other cloud providers as well, all these cloud providers, they actually have integrated monitoring services that help you to monitor your applications and also send alerts in case of issues, in case of incidents, right? So that's something that you can also consider. Usually you don't need to have a third-party tool to monitor your application if you're using a fully managed service like this one in Azure, for example, right? So that's something that I wanted to show to you. And let's see, looks like that the application came up, and there you go. So right now, as you can see here on my URL, we are already seeing the application that we tested yesterday, right, in the mission 3. We are already seeing it inside of running inside of Azure, and this application is right now running inside of Azure in a container, right, in a fully managed service. What does that mean, right? So basically it means that you don't need to manage the infrastructure of this application anymore. Everything is going to be managed by Azure. You just need to make sure that the application is running good, with good performance, with good security, and everything else is going to be handled by Azure, all right? So let's see now, if we come back in here to the Azure screen, let's come back to the log stream, and if we click in reconnect, right, let's see if we see any logs in here. So that's good. So as you can see in here, while the application was coming up, it actually produced a few logs because it's going to try and see if the application is coming up or not. And you see that basically it is listening right now. It is showing up that it is listening on the port 8000, and then because of that, the application is now accessible through the browser, right? Now, if you click on view person, the function here, this functionary, is actually going there and try to connect to the autonomous database. And if you have any issues, during this time, what I want you to do is just come in here on the log files, right? Reconnect and try to see if you had any issues with the database connectivity, right? Looks like that our application sitting in Azure is able to connect to the autonomous database, right? But if you remember, we don't have any data in there. We actually added just one entry inside of our database table. But what I did in here, I just went there and removed all the data, right? Because right now, what we need to do is we need to go there and import the database dump coming from the on-premise environment with the data from the people, right? The data from the people sitting inside of that database. We need to do it inside of our autonomous database right now, okay? So coming back to our notes, let's move forward, all right? So now what you need to do is you just need to, this is the notes, What we need to do is you just need to go there and delete the entries inside of your autonomous database like I just showed you, right? This is in the step by step. We were here, we created a new service, we tested our application. Now you need to go there on Autonomous Database and open the database actions and run the SQL command to remove the data from your Autonomous Database, right? So as you can see, I just did that. You can do it by just coming here on OCI console, database, and autonomous transaction processing. And then once you are in here, you're going to look for your autonomous database. Just click in DB aircrew1. And then here on DB connection, sorry, not DB connection, here on tools, you're going to see the database actions. Just click in open database actions, put your username and the password, admin, and then remember the password in here is welcome 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. There's no 3, all right? It's not 1, 2, 3. It's 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. And then once you're here, just click in SQL, and then you should be good on the database actions like I am here on the other tab, all right? Just go there, run the SQL command, and you should be good, okay? So now we're coming back to our notes. What you're going to do is, like I mentioned, right? We don't have a database available right now in the on-premise environment so that you can go there and export the data, but it doesn't matter, right? Because it's just a task of a DBA that manages a on-premises database should be able to go there and export the data. And the thing that I want you to keep in mind now is there are different ways that you can export data from your source database and import the same data in the destination, right? The approach that I'm going to show you in here is very simple because I wanted to keep it simple for the people that is not familiar with database, right? But keep in mind that when you're doing in production, like for example, in my last few projects, I used two main tools to do it, and you can do it if you're a DBA planning to work with cloud, you can do it as well. One is the Oracle Data Pump. Okay, the data pump is going to generate a dump file so that you can take this dump file and upload that to the object storage and basically import that inside of your autonomous database. That's one of the ways. That's the way that we actually do in one of our hands-on projects in the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Bootcamp inside of the MultiCloud Bootcamp, because this is a more advanced approach, right, for DBAs. So and then it takes more time to do it. But you can do it in the MultiCloud Bootcamp in case you manage to get one of the spots. You're going to do it in more advanced way in there as well, right? And the other way that also already done is using the Golden Gate, right? The Golden Gate is also able to help you to do a zero downtime migration from on-premises to the cloud. So those are the most popular ways for migrating an Oracle database from on-prem to the cloud. The way that we're going to do is we're going to basically get those files, the entries of those files, and we're going to, take it to the object storage so that you can see how you can upload that to the object storage as well, right? And then once it is there, what you can do is you can just get the content of that data and use the database actions to insert those entries inside of the autonomous database, right? So that's how we are going to do it during this project, all right? So excellent. So coming back to my screen. And by the way, let's release the first part of the code. I think we can release the first part of the code. You can release that, production, please. Yeah, there you go. It's 11. Please take a screenshot. Don't forget so that you can get the certificate, all right? Cool. All right, cool. Coming back to our notes. So now what you're going to do is you're going to get the link to download the dump that has the data from on-prem, right? And then I'm going to open this dump in here just so that you can see how it looks like, right? So let me open a new window in here and then open that dump file because it's not inside of this folder. So let me open this guy right here. So this guy is right here. Dump, where are you? Where are you, dump? Okay. I think this one. Yeah, this is the one. Okay, cool. I'm just gonna open this. Yeah. So right now we're going to assume that we're going to get the data from a few crew members from the on-premises database, which are going to be those guys in here. We have a captain, a flight attendant, a captain, first officer, and then you see that those are the data that we are assuming coming from the on-premise environment. And then also you can see that in the last column you see the name of the file of the passport of each one of the crew members, right? those files in the on-premise environment, if you remember, are actually sitting here on the app VM, right? If you remember, those files are sitting right here on the app VM, okay? And then what you're going to do is, here is basically just the metadata, that we are going to import inside of the database, because once those entries are there inside of the database, you're going to see that the communication or the file will still not be there because we need to upload them to Azure, but you're going to see that the entry is going to be already there inside of the autonomous database, all right? So basically what you can do is, let's come back to the AutoCloud Infrastructure console. And like I mentioned, right, if you're doing it in a production environment, and this is something that we also do in the AutoCloud Infrastructure Bootcamp, part of the MultiCloud Bootcamp, you're going to come in here to buckets, and you're going to upload the dump file to your existing bucket, like for this one in here, bucket db crew, right? Then you can just come in here and upload this file, right, that you just, I just showed you, the dump file. I'm gonna just upload the dump file to the object storage, right? Why we consider doing it? So basically the way that it works, and then the dump file is in here, right? So basically the way that it works when you are working in an on-premises migration to the cloud, usually the databases are bigger, right? So you should have a way to store those dump files. Let's say that you have a database that 100 GB big, and then usually you should have a way to store these 100 GB dump files that you can go there and actually use that file to import your data inside of your database running in the cloud, right? But in our case, given that we have just a little bit of registry, right, because we are just doing a simulation, we are not going to do it. We are not going to use at this time this dump file inside of the object storage, right? But what we are going to do is to make our lives easier and to help you that don't have a lot of database knowledge at this time to understand how it works. And you don't need to have database knowledge to work with cloud computing, right? Unless you're a DBA, because the DBA should have the the comprehensive knowledge. But you just need to understand the process, how it works. So in order for us to import that data inside of the autonomous database, what you're going to do is you're going to open the dump file that I showed to you. You're going to open that with your notes, for example. Let me open in here. Yeah, you just open that, copy those entries, and then just come in here and insert those entries inside of the database, right? You're just going to run it, just click in run, and then you're going to see that those entries will be actually inserted inside of the database, right? Now, if you're a DBA, you're probably wondering, hey, but can I use the SQL Plus as well for doing it? A command line, and the answer is yes. You could download this SQL file, this dump file, and just go there on Cloud Shell. The Cloud Shell has already the SQL Plus installed, pre-installed, and you could just upload the wallet and do it from there, right? That's absolutely possible, okay? And the other way, you could also do using the XPDP and EPDP. This is more for DBA, okay? You don't need to worry now, just giving additional information for you that you are a DBA. And from the Cloud Shell as well, you could call the ImpDP to import the data inside of your autonomous database, all right? So that's how it works. So cool. Now that we have the data inside of the autonomous database, let's just run a select in here to see if everything is in there. And let's see, yeah, and there you go. You see the crew members already in there, right, showing up in the autonomous database. Now let's just come back to our application. Let's just do a quick refresh to see if the data is gonna show in there. And there you go. The data is showing there because we imported the data coming from the on-premise environment, right? Open up for me, please, camera one. So what we just did was we imported the data coming from the on-premise environment to the database running on OCI. And we also, I'm gonna do a check marking here, and we also deployed the application running on Azure App Service. So now, if you remember, right, there is still one piece of steps now, right? Piece of execution here on this architecture that we need to do. That is basically plugging the storage account container in our application, right? So this one is already done as well. We converted, uploaded to Docker Hub. So I'm gonna do a check mark on this. Now this guy in here is pending. If you remember, we created our storage account container, and then you see that there is a link in here in the application, right, for the passport. If you click on this link right now, what's gonna happen is it's gonna throw an error saying that the blob was not found, right? The reason for that is, if you think about that, this file is still not there in Azure. Do you agree with me? This file is still not there in Azure, even though you can see that it is already, generating the URL correctly for us using the storage account, the container name, and also the file name, right? That matches with whatever we uploaded to the autonomous database in here, right? Josh, where is it? Yeah, this name in here, passport Josh, and the same name of the file, passport Josh, that you're seeing. This is coming from the database. And the other thing that I wanted to show you is given that this is a pre-signed URL, you see that there is a token information in here in the URL as well. So it basically means that the application is able to access the passport even though it's inside of a Azure blob storage in a private configuration, because there is the authentication token already in here, right? But we still are not able to access the file. What we're going to do is, as part of the next steps, coming back to our notes, right? So if we look in here, the last step is to upload the passport files coming from the on-premises VM, right, to the Azure blob storage that was created. And then for doing that, just go there and download those files coming from the zip file in here. And once you do it, you're going to see a folder with the passport files that came from the on-premise environment, right? So if you open in here, you're going to see that there is a passport. So it is actually a passport, right, that we're going to upload. Of course, this is a fake image, right? I'm not going to put a real data in here, but just so that you can understand, right? Just closing it, and then you're going to get those passports. And what you're going to do is you're going to go back to Azure Console, and then let's go to Azure Console right now. Let's go back to the home screen, and then now let's go back to the storage account. Just click in the storage account that you created. Let's go inside of the TCP storage account that was created. Just click in containers and click in passport, right? And then now what you're going to do is you're going to upload those files to the container that we created, right? So that the application can now use the PDF file sitting inside of the container. So just click in upload, and then you can come in here and select all the passport files that are inside of the folder, that you just downloaded. Just select all of them and click in upload again. And then it's going to upload all the files for us inside of the Azure bucket, right? As you could see, okay? So now if we come back to the application, let's just refresh and try to access the passport again. And what's going to happen is immediately the passport file, which is there in the Azure container storage blob, is going to show up, and it basically means that the application is able to communicate with the Azure blob storage to get the passport and show that to the user, right? So here you go, the passport is in there. And then if you look at the URL, right, you see that the URL again is a signed URL with the token, so that only the people accessing the application can actually go there and look at the passport files, for example, right? So congratulations. So it basically means that, coming back to our whiteboard, so it basically means that this step is now completed as well. We migrated the PDF files sitting here, right? PDF files sitting here to the Azure blob storage. This is also done, right? And we also validated that the connectivity between the application running on Azure and the database running on OCI is working. So congratulations, you will now have deployed and migrated a application, and this application now is running in a multi-cloud architecture, right? This is, by the way, a reference architecture that is there on the Azure website if you want to research for that, because a lot of companies are actually, right now as we speak, they are actually migrating their data to the same architecture. So you just learned how so many large corporations are doing in the real world, which is amazing. Congratulations for making this far.